It's a new episode of Business Meets Life, and we are traveling virtually to amazing Sydney, Australia. We have wonderful Arena McLellan with us. And I got the chance to actually see Arena speak live on stage, a stage with 1,000 people in Sydney. And her story absolutely wowed me. And I was like, wow, what a role model, what a woman. More people have to get to know Arena. But it's not only about the story. She also provided tons of value in her short speech. So, Arena, thank you so much for making time and being here with us. How are you today? Happy Friday.
Thank you so much for having me. I love doing different kinds of interviews and podcasts because I like to give as much value as I can to anyone that wants to listen. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. So, before we go into very specific questions, I really felt touched when you actually opened up on stage in front of these 1,000 people. You told a little bit of your private story, how you made your first million and real estate and so on. So I would love to ask you, can you just share your unique story with us and how you actually have become this amazing woman?
Thank you for that. Geez, like where to start? So it was a long journey. Obviously I have worked incredibly hard to have what I have today. And so I think that obviously work ethic is probably one of the main keys to success, along with the power of perseverance, which is something that I touched on briefly in my speech when you came to saw me. When you came to see me at the Power of Success in Sydney. So, look, the main question that I get asked is, well, like, how did you get into property? It's like, why are you so motivated for someone your age? So really it all comes down to my dad, right? So in my speech I touched on the fact that I had a pretty challenging childhood. It wasn't easy by any means, and that resulted in the fact of me being very, very fortunate to be adopted at a young age by an elderly man that raised me as a single parent. And that's something which it's not a common decision that someone would make, especially if it's for their own children sometime. And so what I mean by that, I mean he was in his probably late 60s, early 70s, and then like he spent pretty much like his retirement age to raise me as a single parent. And so he was a man that worked so incredibly hard throughout his life, and then to basically give up your retirement to adopt a child, like even today, like that still blows me away. And so that's just a testament to the quality of person that he is. And so I truly think that there's not much else I could do, or anything more that I could think of to actually try and repay him for that, because it's just such a huge choice that he made, and it honestly changed my life. So to cut a long story short, like he was definitely the biggest motivator in my life. And whether it was property, or whether it was, school, or just any aspect of my life, it's like I always wanted to be my absolute best self, because how I look at it is that he gave me a second chance at life. So I'm not going to waste it. So that's a bit of a tangent about that. Sorry. um,
Thank you for opening up and sharing this with the world. It takes a lot of courage, also.
it does. I mean, like for a long, long time, it's like I never spoke about my past because I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want handouts. And then it was only really like the last 6, 12 months when, some people closer in my network started to understand me more, and like, found out, bits and pieces about what I've been through, and said, hey, like that's actually inspiring. Like you need to share this story, because like there's so many people out there who have been through similar experiences, or maybe not as intensely, and they have this belief that they can't, either get into property, or like they can't, start their own business, or just have a belief that they can't do certain things because of what they've gone through. And so that made me think twice. And so it was at the speech that you saw me at, that was the first time I've ever shared something that in depth about my private life publicly. So it was a big move, but obviously like the feedback from that, and just the amount of people that came up to me and said how it had shifted their way of thinking, or how it had like inspired them to make a change, like that really, really touched me. So obviously the power of a story and just like the power of inspiration, like it's something that I've quickly learned over the past few months, and definitely something which I want to further grow and then further utilize, over the course of my life.
And as I was sitting in the second row, I could definitely feel this. That's why I was saying, like, this story and then the rest of the value, I was like, wow, I got to talk to you. But yeah, let's go back to your story and then tell us a
Yeah.
little.
I tend to go on a bit of a tangent, so sometimes you might have to rope me in.
No worries. I love it.
Yeah. So look, obviously like my dad was the main motivator, and so during like my high school career, like I just truly just wanted to make him proud because he didn't know how to read or write. So like obviously, I put in a lot of work, a lot of effort into school. And then by the time I was 18, my dad at that time was in his late 70s. So he obviously was concerned of, well, how much longer am I going to live? Like, where is she going to live? Is she going to be able to look after herself? And so he was the one that encouraged me to buy a property as a sense of security, right? So he was always a good influence for me. He didn't come from an investment background or like an entrepreneurial background, but like he is probably one of the most street smart people that I've ever come across in my life. So like even though it's like
You just
from a,
mentioned he didn't know how to read and write. Did I hear this right?
no, no,
Wow.
no. I know, but like from a street smart point of view, he was extremely savvy. So like that's why it's like I think a lot of my learnings, a lot of my beliefs when it comes to people or just a lot of my values truly come from him,
Yes.
where if he didn't adopt me, then who knows where I would be. Maybe I could have ended up in a foster home. Maybe I could have struggled with some other different challenges in my life,
Yeah.
because of the context of how I was raised. Who knows, right? So like that's why it's like I will be forever thankful. But anyway, at that time I was 18. I didn't want to buy a property. I wanted to be a professional singer. So like that's what many people actually don't know about me, is that like I've trained professionally as a singer ever since I was a young girl. And so
Wow.
when I was like alter ego, hey. um and so at that time, I didn't want to live paycheck to paycheck. I didn't want to live gig to gig. I knew how tough the singing industry was. So even though I didn't want to buy a property, I listened to my dad. So anyway, at that time, didn't know anything about property, didn't know anything about finance, didn't know anything about how to get a loan. So then I was like, why don't I join a bank? Which was the most random thought. Why don't I join a bank? And then that way I can learn a bit about property. I might get, say, like a staff discount. And then after 6 months, then I'll leave the bank. So that was the intention at that time. And then when I joined banking, like I fell in love with what I was learning, because you learn about property, you learn a lot about tax structures, you obviously learn a ton when it comes to finance, but you also learn a lot when it comes to people. And so when I first applied for banking, and this is a bit of a story. See, like with me, like there's always a story within a story.
I love it.
um,
Even like me.
and so like this is where like I believe this was probably one of the small decisions which changed my life. So when I was applying for banking, again, like I didn't want to do it. I knew it was a smart thing to do, but like I wasn't racing to go and be a banker, right? So during the application process, I applied for different banks, and then you have to do like a behavioral test and a personality test, and then a couple of other tests for like maths and stuff like that. And then after, once you've succeeded that part, you go to a online video interview where like you have to film yourself, and then like you got to answer like certain set questions. And so at that time I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. Like I can't be bothered. So like I kind of just left it. Because like when I got that email to do the online video interview, you had 48 hours to do it. So like for me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. Look, I've got 48 hours, so I'll just think about it. And then by sheer miracle, like I'm still blown away by this, is that about 6 hours after I got that first email saying that I had a 48-hour time frame, I get an email saying you failed to complete the online interview within 48 hours, so we have withdrawn your application.
Oh,
And so at that time, like I was like, who are they to kick me out? Like if I'm gonna not do it, well then it's gonna be like,
my
essentially
decision.
like me telling them that like I'm not gonna do it. So like that fired me up a little bit. So then I sent an email back saying, this is a glitch, and so according to like the previous email, it's like I still have another like 42 hours left. And so they actually granted that, and then I did the online interview purely out of spite, and I got successful to the next round, and so then I was obviously successful at the final round. And then when I got the job offer, she said that I was the number one applicant out of 600 applicants, and
Wow.
and and I was actually, excuse me, at that time, I think I was 17 and I was about to turn 18, and all the other applicants were a lot older than me, like some people in their late 20s, early 30s, if not older. And so I was shocked that I got the job. But if I didn't get that glitch email, I most likely never would have proceeded with it. And I never would have probably gone into banking. And then I probably wouldn't have like gotten my portfolio and like be where I am today. So that's something that actually blows my mind
And
every
that's a
time
good
I think about
reminder.
it.
Like, I think many of us, we have these stories where at a young age, like for me, I heard, like, after my stepdad committed suicide, I heard his brother talk to my mom and saying, like, your daughter will never become anything because my mom is an immigrant back in Germany, back in the days. I mean, she was a foreigner. And I think these kind of stories and even this kind of negative negative motivation can actually be
Yeah.
really good motivation, give you that extra fire, as you just said, like a rocket.
Oh
Okay, what
yeah.
happened next?
So geez, what did happen next? So at that time as well, I had a really bad stutter. And so when I was doing all of the interviews, I was trying my best to hide the stutter. And so then when I got the job, I actually didn't know what role I was applying for. I thought it was going to be like a bank teller at like a physical branch, and it ended up being contact center. And so I started panic. I was like, contact center, like I have a stutter, like I'm going to get fired probably like after like 1 or 2 weeks. Like, so, but then I was like, look, I'm 18 now. I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to give it a go. So anyway, I gave it a go, and I don't know how I did it, but I hid my stutter somewhat well, where a lot of co-workers didn't notice it, but it was so draining to have to hide it, and like to have to constantly just think about every single sentence so extensively. How am I going to say it? If there's particular words that I know that I stutter on, it's like I can't use those words. And like it was challenging in the contact center because some of the words that I used to really, really like struggle with was words that started with R, S, and N. And so for the role that I was in, we would have to say on nearly every single phone call, service request. And I would struggle so much. I would be like service request, but I think the perseverance of having to say that phrase nearly every single call, I then grew out of it a lot more. But yeah, long story short. So I was in that role for 6 months. I did well in terms of sales targets and just picking it up quickly. And then I wanted to get into management, but they pushed me back because I didn't have any lending experience. So then I got into lending, and I learned so much then. I think I was still 18 or just about to turn 19 at that stage. And so I learned a lot about lending. And then over time, like as I moved throughout my banking journey, I wasn't applying for roles based on, oh, I want more money. I was applying based on, well, what do I want to learn next for myself? So I think one of the game changers within the banking career was when I applied for a small business banker, which I did that purely because I wanted to start buying investment properties under a trust, but I knew nothing about trust. And so I wanted to learn about trust, and then I wanted to learn about tax structures and like all like the different types of entities. So so then I got into small business banking, and obviously you're dealing with financial planners, accountants, solicitors, and investors like every single day. So like I just learned so much stuff about businesses, about about tax, about all this different stuff. Where like by the time I was 20, I knew how to read a set of financials inside out, which like isn't normal, because like if you think about a lot of business owners today, like they can't even read their financials fluently. It's like they might know like how to find the net profit or just like basic elements, but like they don't know what certain things mean, right? So I definitely think that I definitely excelled a lot of business skills, or like a lot of just like additional skills that have really paid off to know as a business owner today. Excuse me. So and then after that I went into business banking. I went into more like specialized types of banking, and then on the back burner I was building a portfolio of residential and commercial properties, because I was like, hey, like I'm learning all of this stuff. It's like I should be implementing this, which that's a shock for me in the banking industry, because like 99% of bankers either don't own a property, or if they do, it's just their principal place of residence. And like the ones that do have an investment, like it's most likely just one property, and the property that they do have is like quite a poorly sourced property. So like that's what really like surprised me. And so that's why it's like I dedicate a lot more time to understanding like the property sourcing, and like understanding all the data when it comes to like location and all that jazz. And so then it came a time where I wanted to start my own business. I didn't want to be a mortgage broker. Reason being is because the trend in the banking industry is that once you've had enough, you then use that experience to become a mortgage broker, because that's the next step for someone that wants to utilize their skills to have their own business. The issue is that in Australia, it's oversaturated when it comes to mortgage brokers. So I didn't want to have that kind of competition. So that's why I thought about it from the flip side. It's like, okay, well, like they're doing the loans, but what about the property? So that's why I wanted something a lot more niche, something which I was a lot more passionate about, which was property. And so that's why I decided to become a buyer's agent, because I love to source property. And obviously when you're dealing with a client, you're helping them achieve such a massive milestone, because it's such a big asset. And so to help your client build wealth through property, and like to see those outcomes, and then to see how they grow within their investment journey, like it's one of the favorite things about my own business, and like one of the best things about being a buyer's agent.
That sounds exciting. So basically, you were still working in the banking industry. What age was it when you started? Like you're basically your own company at the same time?
Yeah, so I was 23 when I was like starting up my business. And so then I had left Still at 23. Yeah. So then I took a risk, and I did my business full time. The reason why I hesitated for longer than I should to make that decision is because I was probably one of the highest paid bankers for my role, um, nationwide, for that particular role for that bank, right? So like I knew that if I leave, I'm never probably going to get this amount of money for this type of role again, or it's going to take me a long time to get paid at this level again.
Wow.
So it was, so it was like, it was scary. So I just had to break down the numbers. I was like, okay, well, how many clients like do I need to kind of match the income that I was earning? Do I think I can do that within the first 12 months? Yes. Okay, let's just do it.
Reverse
And
engineering.
exactly. And so I'm glad I took the jump. And in hindsight, I should probably have left sooner, because like I just love business. I love being a business owner, and I love doing what's right by the client as well.
So until when did you make your first million then?
So I made my first seven figures in property. Well, like technically I made 2 million at like the same year, but like when I was 23, then like I made my first 2 million through property investing before I became a buyer's agent, which is an important thing to note, because unfortunately a lot of buyer's agents out there, when they start their buyer's agent career, either they have no property or they have a very small portfolio of maybe like their principal place of residence and one investment or two investments, and then because they earn a lot of cash flow from the buyer's agency, they then build their portfolio. Whereas I didn't do it like that. I built the portfolio first and then I became a buyer's agent.
Now, how did you make sure that people actually, I mean, people always have prejudices, right? They always look for a reason like not to trust you or to judge you. Oh, I don't like the shirt she's wearing or the glasses, or oh, she must be too young, or whatever it is. How did you overcome these prejudices? I mean, at age of 23, that people actually wanted to do that with you and become a
Yeah, yeah. Look, great question. Look, it is hard. Like in every crowd, like there's going to be people who automatically love you, who are unsure about you, or who automatically dislike you, right? So I personally think it was more of a challenge in my banking career rather than in my business career, because in banking career or just in corporate, it's very political, and a lot of the decisions and biases are around tenure in role, or how long have you been working at that particular organization for, or like if they just like you, or like if they're friends with you. It's just a lot of fluff, which I disliked, because like I'm a very straight to the point kind of person, and I don't like BS. I don't like people sucking up to me. I don't like doing that. And so I'm a believer where if you've worked hard and if you're the best person for that role, then you should get that. Fortunately, that's not how the corporate industry works. So, so I had a lot of challenges in terms of my age, in terms of perhaps I guess you could say gender, because of like so many things. But I didn't let that stop me, right? So I just kept powering through. But I definitely think that the uphill battle was steeper in the banking career rather than business career. But when it comes to business, I think the fact that what gave me a lot of credibility obviously was the amount of banking experience, because during my time I became a award-winning banker. So having that title, as well as thank you having that title, as well as the years of experience, as well as dealing with self-employed customers, specialists, specialized types of lending, and just all that experience really differentiated me with other buyers agents. Plus, the credibility of how I built my portfolio by myself before I became a buyer's agent, and like made a couple of mil at 23 without any help from like family. Like that also was a great branding aspect, because a lot of my clients, it's like, for them, it's like, well, I want to achieve what you have because you did it in like 5 6 years without like any form of help. So like, I want you to do that for me. So like it's more of a, I feel as a business owner, that's more appreciated, whereas in the corporate industry, they see that as a threat or they don't appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, this shows again, like I've been writing down. Actually, I think I've already figured out the title here for our podcast, From Singing to Banking to Young Multimillionaire. What's your favorite song, by the way, that you
What's my
wrote?
favorite song? Oh my God, like that's so hard. Oh my goodness.
Or maybe Interpreter when you were still more like singing?
Well, look, I still sing professionally now because like my business gives me the flexibility to do what I want in that regard. And look, I think the business aspect and like the acumen for that has also helped my singing career as well. But anyway, favorite song. This is so challenging.
Should I
Oh,
better ask you a business question instead? It would be easier.
oh, mate, look, I would probably say like any Celine Dion song at this point. I'm a big fan of hers. Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. So I definitely wrote down like work ethic, and I think while you're talking, we can constantly see this, and it's extremely motivating. I also have one of the key takeaways that you said. I learned about people in banking. So the corporate world has really taught you a lot. And the first 7 years, I was also at AHP, Hewlett Packard, and corporate. People always told you you have to be authentic. I was also like the one of the few and nearly only women, especially in my account, and youngest, and so on. So yeah, I think corporate really teaches you a lot of really good, great things, and gives you a great opportunity to start before becoming self-employed. Very good reminder from you for everybody: know your financials, especially as
Hmm.
a boss or if you're self-employed. Now, what do you think? What would be your advice for anybody else? Doesn't matter if woman or young or what nationality. Like, how can other people achieve what you have achieved?
Yeah, that's a very broad question. Look, I've always been a believer that it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter what your gender is, it doesn't matter where you're from or what your financial upbringing or family upbringing. I believe that if you want something, if you have the work ethic, if you persevere, then you can create that opportunity for yourself. Because when I look back on my life, there were so many pockets of, I guess, I don't want to say challenges. It was a lot more than that. It was times where I thought to myself, why am I doing this to myself? There's an easier way out of this. I could be, I could be doing something else, or like I could just like move to say like a different bank, or I chose not to opt for the easy way out because I had that long-term foresight of, well, if I do XYZ and I overcome this challenge, then I know that it will give me XYZ. Whereas like I feel like a lot of people where if something's hard, if there's a challenge, that like they don't persevere, they just opt for, okay, well, what else can I do um to like get out of this or like not have to deal with this? And 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 I emphasize this because like it's absolutely true, like how perseverance changes everything. And like I feel that perseverance as a topic in itself doesn't get spoken about enough. Yes, people dabble on it, or like they have like their other keys to success, but it doesn't matter your talent, it doesn't matter like what the external factors are. If you work hard, if you persevere, then I believe that you can get what you want in life.
Yeah, I love it. I was actually about to ask you next, how do you tackle yourself when you have a low day? But I think you've kind of answered this
Mm.
already now, right?
Look, like it's not easy. I mean, like even now, I still get my low days where like I think to myself, I'm like, you know, I could be doing something else that's a lot easier. It's like I work long hours, and like it's easy to have the negative voices to drag you down, where like something that I heard from one of my business coaches, which really changed my perspective on business being hard. He goes, your job as a business owner is that you need to put out fires, and then as a business owner, like if you have, say, like 30 good days within that year, then that's excellent. But you need to understand that not every day is going to be a great day, and that your job is to actually put out fires. And so like when I understood it from that point of view, where like I was like, okay, well, like it's normal to have hard days, or like it's normal to have like a lot of challenges, a lot of barriers when it comes to business, and that my job is to put out the fires and like to overcome them. Like that 100% changed my mindset, because I think everyone has an expectation that as a business owner, it's like, yeah, like you get to work for yourself, and that like every day is going to be a great day. Mate, it does not work like that. So yeah, so I don't like to say the word mindset, because like a lot of people bang on about mindset, and like some people roll their eyes. So like, so like I don't like the word mindset, but
Mm.
that shift in perspective of like seeing the exact same situation but from a different point, like that shifted me. And like I think that gave me further confidence in accepting the challenges, and that accepting that every day is not going to be a good day.
Yeah. Was it JT Fox who said that?
100% it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
um Now, do you have any specific like habits? Like a lot of people like in the West, we always talk about work-life balance. And I mean, people like you and me, we work long hours. Like I'm a
Mm,
believer in work-life integration because I love my work.
mm.
Do you have any specific habits, routines that you do? I mean, some people they get up at 4 or 5 a.m., then they meditate, read their newspaper, have their me time before they start doing emails from 6 or whatever. Do you have something like this, like these habits, routines that support you in being your best version, being the best business owner, boss, or?
Yeah. So look, for me, it's always been a challenge because I have ADHD, right? So my mind works at 2000 miles an hour, and it doesn't stop. And sometimes it's like I'll be working on three different things at once, and it can be overwhelming, right? So like I've had to come up with certain routines to kind of streamline thought, streamline focus, and get the most out of productivity. So for me personally, this may not work for everyone. I like to get up, excuse me, I like to get up a bit earlier. So and so the reason for that, right, is that the world's quieter, because if you start work at 9, 10 a.m., everyone is up at that time, or like that's when the working crowd is actually working. Whereas like if you were to work, say, at 6 a.m., the world is peaceful, right? So what I do is that when I wake up, I like to go for a walk straight away, because in that way the endorphins that I'm getting from that exercise, and that like I'm getting my body moving, it helps with focus, and it also helps with positivity, I find. So like it doesn't have to be like strenuous. I just go on the treadmill for 15-20 minutes, and then either I'll listen to a podcast, or like I'll I'll listen to subliminals if I feel like that today's going to be a hard day. And so then once I kind of do that, I I tackle like my hardest tasks first, or the things that I really don't want to do, I do it first. Because if it's out of the way, then my day's going to be lighter. And so for me, I like to time block as well. So for me, like if I don't plan my day out the night before, that's it, see you later. Like ADHD just takes over, and then like I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how long things are going to take me. So I'm big when it comes to time blocking, and then like allocating, well, what task am I doing in that specific block, how long is it going to take me, do I need a buffer, all those things. And obviously diet is such a big one. I think that as a business owner, or just just as a human being, you need to understand food. And so what I mean by that is that certain foods will spike your insulin, or like certain foods will give you like an afternoon crash, or may cause you to be like a lot more tired. So I think people need to understand, well, what foods are actually going to give them brain fuel. That's how I see it, right? And then also having a really good diet plan, to ensure that your foods are giving you proper energy. And like, I know that we're busy, I know that, I know that we're in a rush, but going for instant options which may be highly processed, like, that's not helping you do business. People think it's two separate things. It's not. I believe everything ends up integrating, right? So for me personally, I do meal prep on Sunday afternoons. That way, like, my food for the working week is all done. That way, like, when it's lunchtime, or like even if it's like a dinner time, I don't need to cook because it's already there. And like, I save so much time. Plus, I can time block that. Um, because like, for the ADHDers out there, it's like, if they don't plan things in advance, then everything's everywhere, and if something's out of schedule, then the whole system crumbles, right? So these are just certain things which have to be a bit more like regimented for me because of ADHD. Like, obviously this may be a bit too strict, or like a bit too streamlined for some people, but that's fine.
I love it. There's definitely some inspiration I got out. I definitely would like to go back to some kind of meal prepping. In China, we do so much like delivery and eating
Mm,
outside with clients or without. And I should definitely, very good inspiration, maybe get an nutritionist and expert, as you mentioned, understand what's the food that gives you the right the right energy to think, to focus, and so on. So yeah, feel free to share more of these wonderful tips and tricks. And again, they might be working for you, maybe not for
yeah.
somebody else, but they're really inspiring and very good tips.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, like, when I'm trying to get in a real focus zone, like when I work, I listen to brown noise, because again, it's like all about like, how can I streamline focus? And so the issue is that if you're listening to music with lyrics, then your subconscious is soaking that in, or even just like your actual like thoughts, like whilst you work, it's like you might be trying to sing along, and like you're thinking about that. Whereas brown noise, because it's a certain type of noise at like a certain frequency, and it's consistent, I think it helps to block out the external, and like to block out the world essentially, right? So I'm big on that, and I'm big on aromatherapy. So
Oh, I love
essential. Yeah, yeah. So I love a good like essential oil, and like there's certain scents. Oh, awesome, awesome. Um and there's certain scents which again, it's like it helps to streamline focus. So like, it's just coming to understand all of your body senses, and how are you trying to streamline everything so that you're focusing on one thing at a time in order to increase your productivity. And then obviously, like, I think sleep is huge. Like, sleep is something everyone should be prioritizing along with food and exercise. So obviously, on top of the treadmill, I go to the gym, and then like I'll go swimming once a week, and like, I'll mix it up. But you have to keep your body moving, and food is absolute fuel, and you need to understand that some foods may or may not work for your body, and that foods which work for other people may not work for you. I think that's the number one thing that people need to learn. But like, when it comes to nighttime, like, obviously no screens. I say about 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed. Again, work with like aromatherapy to like really like get you soothed for bedtime. I like to read a book prior to bed, as well, like about anything. It could be property, it could be business, it could be life, it could be philosophy, whatever. And then for sleep, like, I highly recommend this. It's not for everyone. I love nose strips and mouth tape, because especially if you're a snorer, game changer. And like, just the depth of sleep and the quality of sleep is so much better. So you need to make sure that your sleeping conditions are good. So that's why I'm a big fan when it comes to nose strips, mouth tape, aromatherapy, even obviously listening to certain type of music or like certain type of frequencies to help aid your sleep as well.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah. People often ask, so how many hours do you sleep?
Look, it depends on everyone, right? I mean, ideally I get around eight hours, but like obviously, if it's been an emotionally exhausting week, then you need to listen to your body. I mean, like on those weeks, it's like I might need, say, like an extra half an hour, right? It's just I think having like a set, oh, well, like you always have to sleep like eight, eight or like nine hours. I think that's incorrect because everyone functions differently. And plus, for the week that you're having, based on your fatigue levels or like based on, well, what are the events that have happened in that week? Well, that will also help to understand if you need more or less sleep for that particular week.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. What other kind of investments do you do?
I deal with Australian property. So, in terms of my clientele, I deal with anyone who is, say, like an international investor who wants to buy property in Australia. Could be first home buyers, could be mum and dad investors, or could be a high net wealth individual. So I deal with everyone because obviously during my banking career, I was dealing with, like the mum and dad are business owners to like medical specialists to like high net wealth business owners. So obviously, like I have experience with like a range of clientele, but then for the property that we source, it will depend on the strategy. So like I'm fortunate because for my own portfolio, I have I have implemented multiple types of strategies. So we source both residential and commercial property, which is quite rare for a buyer's agent. I feel like buyer's agents, most of them will typically only source residential, which I think is a limited strategy. But anyway, that's a whole chat for another day. But yeah, so like either the client could want a residential property. It could be something that's more on the newer side, which is under like their self-managed super fund, or like it could be, say, like an older property which like they want to renovate, or like if they want to subdivide. Again, it depends on what the strategy is based on their goals and like their financial situation. But yeah, we deal with commercial, and then the key thing is that we help with financial and short and long term property strategy, because everyone wants to buy property,
Yeah.
which yes, that's great, but if you're buying property for the sake of buying property with no game plan, then like it's a little bit pointless, right? Um but but overall, it's like we're looking to expand with working with clients who are international, because I know that there's a lot of incentive um, for um, for certain countries where they don't have to pay a foreign surcharge for stamp duty, which is fantastic. Like it gives those countries like a bit of less barrier to entry within the Australian market. But overall, I think Australian property is probably one of the leading markets in the world, and has so much potential, especially for longevity within like that investment pool.
Good to know. So, what would be your tip, as you just said, for anybody who wants to have a property, whether it's in Australia, anywhere else? You said we need to have a game plan. What would that game plan be looking like, or what would be your tip for that for people?
Sure. So never accept a cookie cutter strategy. That's the number one thing that I will tell absolutely everyone. Because like unfortunately, like with some property experts or like other people who work in real estate, like they have one set strategy which may have done extremely well for them and for some particular clients, but it's cookie cutter and not one size shoe fits all. Like that's how I see it, right? So if someone's trying to enforce one type of strategy onto you, then for me, I get concerned around that, because whilst it may be a great strategy, it may not suit what you're looking to do or like what your financial situation is, right? So that's number one. Anyone who's trying to sell just one strategy, or who is trying to, I guess, disqualify or tear down other strategies, red flag for me. But then in terms of game plan, like it's important to understand your financial position. Like, what's your borrowing power? You know, understanding the power of leverage as well, because like that's why I truly love property, because out of every investment asset class, I think property is one of the easiest in terms of leveraging, and like building wealth through someone else's money and not your own. So that's one of the reasons like why I did fall in love with property. So yeah, understanding finance, because if you can't get the loan, you're not going to get the property. Just simple as that. And then honestly, like having a mentor, which sounds cheesy, I know, but in hindsight, like if I had a mentor back when I started when I was 18, 19, and and that mentor knew as much as what I do today, I think I would have made triple for what I have year to date so far. So I know that there's a lot of hesitation around, you know, people getting, say, like a property coach or like even getting like a mentor. But if they've proven, if they have credibility that they've done it for themselves first, and that that's something that they can then help you explore and like help you with, well then like that's not a cost, that's an investment which will have a long-term payoff. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah. Now, last question for today. We're overrunning
Sure.
time now because I just enjoy. Wow, it's amazing to talk to you.
Thank you.
What's your vision? What's coming next? You're still so young. You've achieved so much. You're such an outstanding female role model in this world. But
Thank you
what's
so much.
next? What's coming after this?
Oh, geez, so much. So for the business, like what I've been focusing on is really on the education piece, because like I fully understand that there's people out there which may not be able to afford a buyer's agent, or like may not be ready to buy property now. But this is the thing, is that like a lot of people, they only start learning once they think they're ready to get into it, which is a mistake. I think that people should be learning as soon as possible, because you could learn one thing which could completely change the like your timeline to get into that particular thing, or like just like change on what the strategy is, etc. Right? So what I'm creating now is actually a education platform. So there will be access through, say, desktop version, but also through an app. And so the price point for this is actually going to be quite under what a lot of other property education businesses typically sell like their education courses for. So like the common is like 5 to 10 grand, but like my mission is to provide a lot of education and a lot of value at a much less price point, to help those people who may not be able to get into property like as of today, but at least know, well, what do I need to do in order to get to that point, right? So for me, it's like about about like helping them get easy access to information from an expert who has done it for themselves, starting in a similar situation to what they most likely are. And like it'll be like an education platform which will have everything from first home buyer, uh, training, to commercial property, to like investing under self-managed super fund. So like it'll be like an all-inclusive course for multiple strategies, for like multiple topics, which to my knowledge, like there's not currently an education platform out there which has that much content to that range, to my knowledge. So yeah, it's gonna be very, very, very exciting.
And when is your course going to be ready to buy for us?
Oh, geez. So I believe
We're
to measure
keeping you
twice, cut
accountable.
once. Yeah. So look, measure twice, cut once. So me being the perfectionist I am, look, I'm hoping the official launch will be September this year. Because like I would say that we're probably like halfway through finalizing everything now. There's obviously so much content. So ideally September this year, but it would definitely be launched prior to the end of the year. Definitely.
Okay, wow, good luck. Keep us posted. Now, in the meanwhile, if people already want to start educating themselves, is there a specific podcast or book that you would definitely recommend people where they can already start learning about these things until your course is ready?
Sure, sure. So funnily enough, right? Like in my own like early stages of my property investment journey, I would read a lot of property books, and it saddens me to say this, but 90% or even more than that, no, 90 to 95% of property investment books either are incorrect, sell just one cookie cutter strategy, or are just there to sell that person's business. Like there's very few books which actually give proper value. But look, instead of me just saying, oh, look, I think you should read this or read that, like I'll give you a one up. Like for anyone who is serious about property that wants to get started, but they're stuck, or like they don't know what they should be doing next, or like how to expand their portfolio, I am happy to offer a free 20-minute strategy session where the goal of that session is, well, let's fine tune a game plan for you. Let's actually try and create something that's actionable, instead of you trying to go to all these various sources, spending like so much time. Instead, like have an expert just tell you what you need to know in 20 minutes in order to get you started. I think that's a lot more effective.
That is so kind of you. I'd be happy to start taking that offer. Is it only for people who are interested in the Australian market?
So obviously the advantage is those who want to buy the Australian market, because the processes and all the policies, etc., I know inside out. But look, if it's an international buyer that like wants to buy property within their own country and like just wants an overview around like strategy or like investment strategy, well then I'm happy to help with that as well. But obviously I'm a big advocate for being for people buying into the Australian market, because as I said, like we're one of the best performing property markets in the entire world.
Wow. You gave so much value. Thank you so much for opening up, for inspiring us with your own story to show that no matter what story or childhood a person has had, everybody has the potential to actually build up something big. Keep on rocking. I'm going to be continuing to watch you and be your fan. You're really
Thank you.
amazing. So thank you for the time, also for the offer that people can actually get your advice. You are just amazing, Arena. Happy Friday. Are there any last words from your side for our listeners coming from China, from actually all around the world? Entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, and we're actually a pretty mixed crowd.
Oh, great. Yeah, look, firstly, I just want to say, likewise. I mean, I've heard a little bit about your own story, and like, I'm a big supporter of like those who have just really, truly worked hard to be where they are today, especially when they've had a lot of challenges. It could be physically, it could be emotionally, whatever. So look, thank you for your own story. I know this interview hasn't been about your story as much, but like, in return, I mean, like I'm definitely a mutual fan of yours. So like I would be, part of your little groupie. Don't worry. But but for the listeners, I mean, look, I've said a lot of things today, which like I truly hope that it has stuck. Unfortunately, a lot of people, it's like, think about it like the analogy where you can lead a horse to water, but like you can't make it drink, right? And so like I'm really hoping that the listeners are the horses that are drinking and not just, having a look at the water. So look, perseverance, absolute key. I believe anyone can work hard towards their goals. If someone tears you down, if someone is like trying to tell you no, you don't be discouraged by that. I know it's hard, but just keep just pushing on, because the people that don't end up successful are the ones that just purely didn't push on. So yeah, just keep on fighting, keep on pushing, and best of luck to everyone.
Thank you so much, guys. If you love today's session, sharing is caring. Send it to your friends, your colleagues, your family members, and have a great day.